delicately told to leave the stage. So the public posturing has always been there, but he's been included in the list of star campaigners. In fact, even on the day when Mallikarjun Kharge took charge as a Congress president, we saw him at the AICC headquarters. So clearly he's very much back into a narrative. Look, as far as Delhi goes, apart from the sensitivity angle involved, he's considered to be someone who has some connect with the crowd in terms of crowd management, crowd funding, so on and so forth, which is why it's very difficult for the Congress to completely ignore him, and which is why there is this catch-22 situation.
Okay, Pallavi, we'll leave the conversation there. Thanks a lot for getting us those details. Now, the Bharat Jodo Yatra continues to garner controversy with each passing day. This time around, it's about actress Swara Bhaskar, who joined Rahul Gandhi on the Yatra. A Union Minister Anurag Thakur, and you've also got Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma, who lashed out at the Congress and said that it is the same Tukre gang that continues to join Rahul's journey. The Assam Chief Minister has also gone on to say that Rahul Gandhi is insulting every state that he's travelling to by letting these Tukre gang and others join the Yatra.
Samandin olop regime khek hua boli সকলোৱে ভাবি ললে কাৰণে অলপ বস্তুটো বাঢ়িছিলে ইয়াক আমি কঠোৰ হাতেৰে দমন কৰিম
आदरणीय राहुल गांधी जी स्वरा भास्कर जी को लेकर के कन्हैया कुमार को लेकर के सुशांत को साथ में लेने से भारत नहीं जुड़ता। भारत जब जुड़ता है जब 370 समाप्त होती है, भारत जब जुड़ता है जब सीए आता है, भारत जब जुड़ता है जब ट्रिपल तलाक जैसे कुप्रथा समाप्त होती है। अब वक्त आ गया है जब एक विधान और एक संविधान और एक राष्ट्र के साथ में हम आगे बढ़ें। मैं तो आदरणीय कमलनाथ जी से भी निवेदन करूंगा कि उनको भी समान नागरिक संहिता पर अपनी राय को स्पष्ट रूप से जनता के सामने रखना चाहिए।
Jodo Yatra is going on, and recently Swara Bhaskar was seen in that Yatra. Now BJP is attacking on this particular Yatra and on Congress party as well, saying that these people who were basically involved in anti-India slogans or Bharat Tere Tukde Honge kind of slogans are basically taking part in this Yatra. What do you have to say on it?
This government is completely incompetent. So far they have not apprehended those who made this slogan on JNU campus. What IB is doing, what the police is doing, I think Swara Bhaskara, Kanhaiya Kumar, they should go to the Supreme Court, file a petition to put an in, decide the matter, or that they have been rumoring this thing, spreading lies all over. This all lies. Why have they not caught them, those who made this slogan? I asked the question from Home Minister.
Good evening, hello and welcome to The Nation at 5. I'm Anusha Soni. Our top focus this hour is a political tussle that has erupted over India taking the reins of the G20. You have senior Congress leaders who are making statements and that has once again started a political slugfest. Let's begin by what Jairam Ramesh said today. He attacked the union government on Twitter, saying that the previous presidents of G20 have been USA, UK, Canada, even South Korea. But none of these countries staged a high-voltage drama as is being done around India becoming the G20 president for a year. Jairam Ramesh said this. He also called Prime Minister Modi an event manager. The political war of words continues as India expands its diplomatic clout on the world stage. Prime Minister Modi made the pitch of one earth, one family, one future. And he said that India's agenda during the G20 presidency will be inclusive, ambitious and action-oriented.
It's a bizarre statement because there is a lot of content, there is a lot of homework done. There is a huge amount of issues, what we call the priorities, which are discussed. All through the year, it's about discussing on priorities. It's about discussing on shaping the future of the world. No, it is an improper comment to make. This is an whole of India approach. This is taking everybody along. We are right now working with the government of Rajasthan. We've got all support. The first event is being held in Udaipur. Every single person in Udaipur, every single official has helped us. It has led to the building up of infrastructure. It has led to the cleaning of infrastructure in Udaipur. A later meeting is being held in Kerala. Many meetings are being held in different parts of the country. Everyone is supporting it. This is a whole of India effort. This is about cooperative federalism at its best.
According to Jairam Ramesh and the Congress, we should not tom-tom any of the achievements and it is the Congress's stated position for the last 60 years that they were in government that you should only tom-tom one family and the descendants of that family. We respectfully disagree. We think India has made tremendous amount of progress under the Prime Ministership of Narendra Modi ji, and it is not just us. The rest of the world acknowledges that India today, the new India that the world is seeing and is center stage during the G20 presidency, is a country that is seen with awe and respect by the countries and peoples around the world.
Today, when the G20 presidency has come to us at the 75th year of India's independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and India is emerging as a global bright spot in a time of global economic crisis, at that time the Congress party once again is in matam mode. Once again, for the sake of opposing one man, the Congress party is opposing what is in Rashtrahit and national interest and national celebration. The Congress party once again, which considers only the parivar to be everything and does not consider the people to be anything, that puts Dal Hit above Desh Hit. This shows the mindset of the Congress.
Well, joining us on the broadcast is Tushar Gupta, who's the senior editor of Swaraj magazine. George Kurian, who's a political analyst, is also joining us on the broadcast. Good evening to both of you. Thank you for sparing time. Tushar, first to you. An attack on the expected lines by the Congress party, not the first one, not the last one, but even various people from opposition parties, say a TMC or the JDU, are saying these are matters concerning national pride and foreign policy. And perhaps on these issues, we don't want to disagree with the government. Congress party thinks differently.
Well, it's become natural for the Congress to oppose everything for the sake of opposition. There's no basis to the opposition. There's no rationale to the opposition. There's no logic to the opposition. Look, one can understand their frustration with the Prime Minister. One can understand their frustration with the BJP. But why would you be agitated when it's India that's heading the G20 for a year, for the next 1 year? Why would you be frustrated about that? Why would you criticize that? We saw how they responded to the logo. Oh, this is the BJP logo. The BJP is trying to promote itself. They went as far as linking the MCD elections, the Gujarat elections and the Himachal elections to the G20 presidency. So it's really disappointing for a party that has been in the government for so long, that has been one of the oldest parties of India, not to understand the significance of this presidency and rather make it about the domestic politics. That's very disappointing. And perhaps, Anusha, it's no surprise this is the frustration of losing Gujarat and Himachal that is perhaps showing on the Congress's face today.
But Tushar, to be fair, and before I go to George Kurian, I mean, the argument can't work both ways. So, I mean, if the BJP is doing what it's not doing because of Gujarat and Himachal elections, and the same runs for the Congress party. I think what they're doing is not about Gujarat and Himachal elections. It's an ideological opposition to the BJP. And they also have a point that this is a rotational chair. There's an event being made out of it. How do you see that argument? There's some kind of marketing event to promote the brand of the BJP, and the Prime Minister is made out of any kind of event which is rotational in nature or which is natural in nature.
Look, even if it's rotational in nature, it's not a BJP event.
Yeah.
It's an India thing.
Yeah.
This is not a matter of pride for the BJP. This is not a BJP victory. This is an India victory. And look at the global conditions right now. Look at what's happening in China with all the COVID protests against the real estate sector. Look at what's happening in America. Look at what's happening in the West with all the Russia-Ukraine crisis. In these times, if there is a bright spot across the globe for investors, it's India. And the G20 presidency honestly has nothing to do with the BJP. Today, if someone else was the Prime Minister, it would have been a matter of pride as much as it is right now. Had it been a Rahul Gandhi or a Chidambaram or Sonia Gandhi or Manmohan Singh, whoever else had been the Prime Minister, we all, irrespective of our party ideologies and the political parties we like to vote for, would have been equally proud that this is India. This is India at its brightest when the entire global conditions are probably not very great.
George, I'm coming to you. And I will ask a more nuanced question to you instead of your agreement or disagreement on this issue. We all have to accept that this is an age of revivalism. This is an age where the political grammar and the grammar of the political narrative in this country has been reset in many ways. most political parties are coming to terms with it. And this has got to do with the changing sensibilities of Indians at large. A very bright sense of pride in the culture and identity that you come from. And when it comes to matters of national interest, especially at global platforms, any kind of domestic narrative which bashes the government often can run contrary to your interests. TMC realizes it, JDU realizes it, Congress doesn't get it.
Well, not really. Anusha, I don't quite agree with Tushar here with his opening remarks. All I want to say is that Congress has said, all Congress has said, Jairam Ramesh, our communication in charge, he has said that G20 presidency is inevitable. It has to happen. It had to happen. So having said that, Congress, the BJP at large did not make it a high voltage drama and just try to capitalize on the opportunity here. We all know there is one point that needs to be noted here, that the Prime Minister has made a statement that, it's about a fundamental mindset shift and oneness. India as a nation is yet to see that fundamental shift, mindset shift and oneness post 2014. We all know that there are religious tensions around, there are cross-border issues, Assam and Nagaland, Karnataka and Maharashtra. And, there are so many issues that, India is facing. So the Prime Minister needs to, first lead by example. Number one, he needs to advocacy first in the country, and then he can do it at a G20 level, at an international level.
No, but George, these issues have existed for decades. These are not the issues which have erupted during the Prime Ministership of Narendra Modi or the rule of the BJP government. Maharashtra-Karnataka dispute has existed ever since the creation of the states. The disputes that you're talking about in the Northeast have existed for times to come, for decades, more than 4 to 5 decades. Any other religious tensions you talk about is a result of the partition that the country has seen. So none of these issues are very peculiar to the BJP. These are national issues, very intricate issues. George.
But BJP has been in power post 2014. This is the second term of Mr. Modi, and they are with a full majority. No, they are with a full majority. So there are things that they can do, and it's in their ambit. So I want to say that the Prime Minister needs to lead by example. First,
so George, I'll ask you a straight question. No, I'll ask you a straight question. India taking over the G20 presidency, a matter of pride or not a matter of pride?
Definitely, is good without saying. It's a matter of pride, but the only thing that Congress is trying to put it across is that there is no need to make it a very high voltage drama.
Why? Why not?
Lead by example.
No, let's take the argument to a rational conclusion. Let's presume, for the sake of the argument, that the BJP is making a high voltage drama out of it. Why not make a high voltage drama? Aren't there various occasions where India gets bad press for no reason? Then why can't we make a high voltage drama about a happening which is actually a matter of national pride? We are going to play up on the things that we've got. What is the big deal about it?
See, there is a big deal about it, because if as a country, as a nation, if we are living up to the expectation of the 130 crore Indians, then one has the liberty to go and make it a high voltage drama. But that's not the case. Everybody knows what's happening around India.
Well, all I can say is that when it comes to the younger generation of this country, or people under 35, which forms the majority of this country, there is a very thriving sense of the identity of cherishing the identity that they come from, what you call loosely nationalism or patriotism. And anything which runs contrary to India's global interest, that kind of narrative doesn't really find resonance, Tushar, does it?
Absolutely does not. Look, Anusha, let's go back to 2010. Delhi was hosting the Commonwealth Games. This was the UPA 2 era. We were coming out of a very ugly slowdown that had originated in the US in 2008. And forget what came out of that Commonwealth game, this entire scam, the entire Kalmadi fiasco. Forget it for a second. But when the preparations were on, when the Commonwealth Games were being prepared for in Delhi, the villagers and the entire work was being done around stadiums, the entire country was excited about it, irrespective of who they were voting for, BJP or TMC or any other party. They were excited because it was India which was hosting that grand event. Same was the story in the 2011 World Cup when there was the UPA Tour era. I still remember the high voltage drama that was around the India-Pakistan semi-final. One, the Prime Minister himself was visiting there in Mohali.
Yeah.
So every time it has been a matter of national interest. The people of India have stood behind the government of the day. In 2010, 2011, it was the UPA government. Today, in 2022, it's the NDA government. And tomorrow, let's say Rahul Gandhi does become the Prime Minister in an alternate universe. If there is another G20 presidency that India takes on perhaps in the next decade, the people of India, irrespective of their ideologies, would still continue to back Rahul Gandhi if he is the Prime Minister back then, or whoever it is. So what I don't understand, Anusha, why is such a simple thing? They say, oh, do not make it a high voltage event. I'm sorry, 2010, without the age of internet and social media, Commonwealth Games was a huge high voltage event, and for all the right reasons in all the newspapers.
No, and
you would
Tushar,
remember that as a journalist yourself.
No. And the entire argument of don't make it a high voltage drama. Why, even if it is a high voltage drama, why not? That's my argument. And you as a political party, whether it's the Congress or any other political party, when you have an achievement, you can make a high voltage drama about it. You can go ahead and publicize this. Nobody stops it. Rahul Gandhi is on a Bharat Jodo Yatra.
Absolutely.
The videos are viral on social media. It's for everybody to see.
Exactly. And every day Congress uploads a new video on their channel, and they have all the right to do so, with Rahul Gandhi communicating on some very, simple matters with the public at large. And that's a good thing. That's good for the Congress. Now, would I call that Jairam Ramesh event management? No, that's a political stunt the party wants to do, and that they're free to do it. The Constitution allows them. This is the government of India doing it. This is not the BJP. This is not happening at the BJP headquarters. What Congress doesn't understand, the G20 presidency has not gone to the BJP. It's gone to the Indian country, the India. That is what we should be interested for. But again, I think it's probably some sort of a white man syndrome or some sort of inferiority complex that there is an achievement and they do not want India to celebrate it. I just don't understand the rationale behind it. While they celebrate Rahul Gandhi every day for every baby steps he takes in his Bharat Jodo Yatra.
Judge, my take on this is, let's make a song and dance about it. We've got the G20 presidency. India has got a lot of things as in terms of its culture, in terms of economy, the direction where we headed to show off to the world, and we would do that. What's wrong about it?
Well, there's nothing wrong in it. All I'm saying is that, at this point in time, when India as a nation, I'm sorry, India as a nation, if we are up to the mark, then we can, lead by example. In this scenario, India, we are going through high inflation, the falling rupee, the rising fuel prices, be it unemployment, and there are a lot of other issues that India is going through.
Are these issues which are absent in any other country which has taken over the presidency?
That's what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to put it across to your viewers is that BJP, Tushar said, it's a pride for the nation. Why not? It's definitely a pride moment for India as a nation. But BJP is trying to capitalize this and make it a election agenda for them to garner the sympathy of the voters and try to make it a high voltage drama. That is questionable here. When Mr. Jairam Ramesh said it's inevitable,
And can you say it with utmost confidence that no other government has done it, even if your argument is taken on face value?
Well, in the past, Congress Party, I believe that Congress Party has tried to, capitalize on such events, when it comes to international level.
Tushar, a quick response from you. I'm short of time.
Anusha, there was no G20 presidency in 2002, 2007, 2012, 2017, and even, in 2019. But yet the Congress Party continues to lose Gujarat. And here George says that India is not up to the mark when it comes to heading the G20. My question to him is, who does he want to have the G20 presidency? China, where the domestic economy is in a very bad shape, where protests are breaking out against the dictatorial controls of the government with respect to COVID-19? Does he want a country in Europe where people are turning off their lights quickly because they're anticipating an imminent energy crisis in the next 2 months? Does he want the United States, which is so divided as a society, so polarized that they cannot even conduct an election freely? I mean, he's free to tell which country is up to the mark in his definition, which should head the G20 presidency, and we should not. And why should we not? I mean, I just don't get it. There is a rotational presidency. I agree to it, but it's about India. And yet they find some faults with India. They talk about inflation.
Well,
Anusha, I keep repeating this on every show. Inflation during the Congress regime touched 12.2%. And over here, even after two
No,
and a half years of
you know,
the pandemic,
I'd like to
a year
conclude.
of a
I'd like to
global
conclude
slowdown,
by
our
saying,
inflation
gentlemen, that
has not
India
exceeded
taking over a
9%.
G20 is a moment of pride for all Indians. That being said, it doesn't mean that we don't have problems as a nation. We can address them, but that doesn't overshadow any kind of celebration or pride that we should have as a country in taking over that prestigious leadership at a global platform. Thank you, Tushar and George, for joining us this evening and sharing your views. Thank you for your time. Moving on, there's some more latest news coming in. Let's go to that. And Russian President Vladimir Putin has told German Chancellor that strikes on Ukraine's infrastructure are inevitable. That's the word really coming in. My colleague Abhishek Jha will join us on the broadcast and give us more details on this entire story. Let me quickly check if Abhishek is with us on the show. Abhishek, tell us more about the statement.
So the statement clearly outlines the discussion that has happened between the two leaders, German Chancellor and Russian President. And in that meeting, Russia has raised the issue of civilian infrastructure attacks on the side of Kyiv and Russian civilian casualty, Russian civilian infrastructure being targeted. And in that response, he underlined that it has become inevitable and Russia is forced to attack Kyiv in a countermeasure. We have seen in the recent days how Russian forces or Russian missiles have actually targeted key civilian facility, including power station, substation, and civilian infrastructure like bridges in Ukraine. And Russia has always claimed that this is happening in response to attack on Crimea Bridge and targeting Russian civilian infrastructure. So that was one aspect of the discussion. However, they have also discussed the issue of Nord Stream gas pipeline that was attacked. Apparently, from the Russian side, it has been said that the Nord Stream pipeline has been attacked, and there is a sabotage behind this whole explosion that took in that sea. Sweden, so this was discussed, and also the president of Russia called the German side to reconsider its approach. So the statements from the Russian side have said that Russia is trying to tell Germany that if they can consider the stances that Russia is taking in Ukraine, and they could try to understand Russian point of view. So this is overall has been the talking point between the two leaders when this meeting has happened, and also the meeting was initiated from the German side, and German Chancellor had expressed his desire to talk with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Thank you, Abhishek, for getting us all that perspective and details on that important development. We talk about that and much more on the other side of a very quick break. Stay tuned.
And the need to go back to the High Court now and ask for an appeal against that discharge?
Well, I don't. Then it must mean that Delhi police didn't present what should have been presented. One was the autopsy report of the All India Medical Institute, which showed lots of marks on her body, an injection hole in her arm, which showed that perhaps she was also given a poison needle, and she had put up a fight. It was also very clear. What was the reason? Why was she in a hotel, 5-7-star hotel? How could this happen in what appears to be 11 o'clock in the morning?
But Dr. Swami, tell me this. You talked about the AIIMS autopsy board, or even the statement that was given by Sunanda Pushkar's son. In none of this, was there any kind of material evidence that her death be treated as some kind of a homicide? So again, I keep going back to this. If neither the autopsy is saying this, nor her closest family members are alleging homicide, then on what basis is the Delhi police trying to revisit this case, or at least appealing to revisit this case?
All India Medical Institute, they gave no such report. I've read that report. I know the forensic department's head, and I've spoken to him also. They all said it was clearly a case of murder. And in fact, the FIR was registered only after the All India Medical Institute gave this kind of a thing. This is false. Yes, his son, her son rather,
yeah.
she he ditched her mother, that's a different matter. That can be investigated separately. Why he did that when he was not even in the scene? How could he say that it is not murder sitting in Dubai? So I think there was a lot of attempts to save Shashi Tharoor. I hope now the justice will be dealt for Sunanda Pushkar.
Okay. Dr. Swamy, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see how the courts take up this matter and whether they find grounds for the appeal. First go across to the man who started this all, basis whose complaint this whole case was registered against Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, former Member of Parliament of the BJP, is now joining us. Dr. Swamy, thank you very much for speaking with us. First things first, like I said, it started with your moving the Delhi police and asking them for a probe into Shashi Tharoor's late wife's death. It took 7 years for the discharge case against Tharoor to happen in the first place, and earlier last year, the Delhi court had discharged him, saying that there is want of evidence. Now, 15 months later, the Delhi police have approached the court again. Many are saying they've dug up this case again. What is exactly the end game here? Because what new has the police found in terms of the last 15 months to warrant going back to the court asking for an appeal against the discharge?
Well, the Delhi police has gone in appeal against the order in the lower court, and but the question is right. You have asked a correct question. Why did they say it takes so long to wake up to after having gone to the upper court and filed an appeal against the lower court's orders? Why did you take so long to go back and start the proceedings?
Now, back when the lower court had discharged Mr. Tharoor from the trial of the death of his late wife, the court had cited, and I quote, an absence of specific allegations and sufficient material to warrant that he was in any kind of conspiracy to eliminate his wife. So my question is, what has changed between then and now, between the discharge that happened a year and a half ago and the need to go back to the High Court now and ask for an appeal against that discharge?
Well, I don't. Then it must mean that Delhi police didn't present what should have been presented. One was the autopsy report of the All India Medical Institute, which showed lots of marks on her body, an injection hole in her arm, which showed that perhaps she was also given a poison needle. And
welcome back, and there are some updates coming in from the Enforcement Directorate office. Let's go to that. And these are the details pertaining to Noora Fatehi and her presence at the office. She's just being spotted walking out of the office. She has exited the office, and there were multiple questions that she was asked by the agency. Let's try and listen.
Noora, did you receive gift? Noora, did you receive gift from 1 minute? Once I can move the mic from my face. Thank you. Noora, did you receive gift from Sukesh Chandrasekhar? No. Bye. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Ashish Mahershi with us on the broadcast. Ashish, any indications of the line of questioning?
So there was no questioning as such, as we broke that story about. This was basically, if you remember, since in the afternoon when she dropped in, people were anticipating, is there any questioning
that is happening. It was not so. There were certain discrepancies in the questioning or the statement that happened last time. So that discrepancies were being basically looked at, and a fresh statement was being recorded. Apart from that, there were certain records that were basically missing. That records were asked for from Noora Fatehi, and then she has completed those records, and that is why she was called. Now, one of the journalists, if you see, when she came out of Enforcement Directorate office, she said that she has not received any gifts. It's not so. She received a BMW, that is for sure. But that is, the Enforcement Directorate has not taken it as proceeds of crime. That BMW was further given to one of the relatives of Noora Fatehi, and since that person was in need of money, then that person sold off that BMW and took away the money. But ultimately, Noora Fatehi was not aware. That is what the Enforcement Directorate has claimed in their charge sheets as well. If you remember, that Noora Fatehi was not aware that this person was basically inside Tihar jail or inside Rohini jail, and he was showering gifts on various other actors and actresses of Bollywood. So finally, whatever was done today, she came in for, what she was there for around 5.5 hours, not more than that.
Yeah.
That discrepancies, there was some discrepancy in the statement that was given previously. That was looked at by the ED officials, and that is why a small, fresh statement has been recorded. And there were certain records that were supposed to be looked at. It needs to be completed because these cases have to stand in the court of law, and the court looks at all the evidence and all the material. So that is what was supposed to be completed, and that has been done.
Ashish, statement given to Enforcement Directorate are in writing and are admissible as proof in a court of law. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is basically, any statement under Prevention of Money Laundering Act is admissible in the court of law as evidence. So any statement given is very important. But my sources tell me that there was no fresh statement today. There were certain discrepancies in the past statement, and that is what was being corrected today. So that was it. And there were certain records that were supposed to be completed. That has been done.
Thank you, Ashish, for getting us all the details on that story. Well, that was Noora Fatehi after about 5 hours of quizzing, not per se quizzing, certain clarifications that the agency really wanted. Moving on. Talking about the Uniform Civil Code, one state after another, and these are BJP ruled states which are making a demand that the Uniform Civil Code should now be a reality. It started with the state of Uttarakhand, which has now opened the floodgates by promising to implement the Uniform Civil Code. BJP ruled states are now joining in this chorus. You have Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chouhan, who's made a statement. You also have the Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, who has said that it is a directive principle under the Indian Constitution and it should be made a reality. You have Haryana Home Minister Anil Vij, who has also said that the state government is considering bringing in some form of legislation that can take us closer to the UCC. Until now, Goa has a certain set of secular laws that apply to all communities, and there is an increasing chorus to have something at the union level, at the central level as well. Reactions on the story.
मैं तो इस बात का पक्षधर हूं कि भारत में अब समय आ गया है कि एक समान नागरिक संहिता लागू होनी चाहिए। एक से ज्यादा शादी क्यों करे कोई? एक देश में दो विधान क्यों चलेगी? एक ही होना चाहिए। और मध्य प्रदेश में भी मैं कमेटी बना रहा हूं। समान नागरिक संहिता, एक पत्नी रखने का अधिकार है तो एक ही पत्नी सबके लिए होनी चाहिए, फिर ज्यादा क्यों होना चाहिए?
भारत के संविधान में डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल ऑफ स्टेट पॉलिसी के तहत हर राज्य को ये इंप्लीमेंट करने के लिए डायरेक्टिव हमारे संविधान ने दिया है। किन्हीं कारणों से हमारे देश में नहीं हो पाया, तो मुझे लगता है कि धीरे धीरे सभी राज्यों को ये करना है, करना भी पड़ेगा। महाराष्ट्र भी उचित समय पर इसके बारे में सोचेगा। मुझे यह लगता है कि संविधान ने हम पर यह जिम्मेदारी डाली है कि हम अपने राज्यों में यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड लाएं।
सरकार के लिए सभी समान नागरिक होते हैं। उनके लिए कोई धर्म, जाति, क्षेत्र महत्व नहीं रखता। उसके लिए इसीलिए ये कहा जा रहा कि यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड एक ही कानून से जो सारों पर लागू होगा उसकी बनाने की बात की जा रही है, और हरियाणा में भी हम जल्दी विचार कर रहे हैं।
यूसीसी को लेकर शिवराज सिंह चौहान ने अनाउंसमेंट किया है कि वो भी मध्य प्रदेश में भी कमेटी बनने जा रही है। बीजेपी का कोर एजेंडा रहा है जब तक यूसीसी की बात होती है, किस तरह से देखते हैं?
बीजेपी ने आर्टिकल 370-35 से भी छुटकारा दिलाया, ट्रिपल तलाक से भी छुटकारा दिलाया, भव्य राम मंदिर बनाने का काम भी शुरू किया और सीए का कानून भी लेकर आए। अब यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड, चाहे उत्तराखंड हो, उत्तर प्रदेश हो, हिमाचल प्रदेश हो, भाजपा के अन्य शासित राज्य हों, हर अपने अपने राज्य में मॉडल कोड लाने का काम कर रहा है और मुझे लगता है एक अच्छी शुरुआत है जिसकी देश की बड़ी लंबे समय से मांग थी।
जस्टिस BS चौहान सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जस्टिस थे, वो रिटायर्ड चीफ जस्टिस नहीं, जस्टिस थे, और उनके अध्यक्षता में लॉ कमीशन ने एक रिपोर्ट पेश की मोदी सरकार को। उस रिपोर्ट को दबाया गया। मैंने उस रिपोर्ट का जिक्र किया पार्लियामेंट में और उस रिपोर्ट में कहा गया है कि यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड आज ज़रूरी नहीं है। 2018 में लॉ कमीशन ने ये कहा था। चुनाव आ गया, गुजरात के चुनाव आए, हिमाचल के चुनाव के वक्त पर यही मुद्दा उठाते हैं जो ध्रुवीकरण को प्रोत्साहन देते हैं।
ऑपोजिशन का ये चार्ज है कि आप कंसल्टेशन के बिना ये इम्प्लीमेंट करने वाले हैं और ये आपके डिवाइसिव एजेंडा का एक पार्ट है जहां आप माइनॉरिटीज को टारगेट कर रहे हैं।
देखिए, दिक्कत यही आती है कि कांग्रेस हर समय तुष्टीकरण की राजनीति को आगे बढ़ाती है। इस देश में 75 साल के बाद जो स्थितियां खराब हुई हैं उसका कारण कांग्रेस और कांग्रेस की यही नीति है। कांग्रेस ने लगातार इस देश की आजादी के बाद इस देश में राज किया, परंतु उन्होंने कभी माइनॉरिटी की बात की, कभी मुस्लिम तुष्टीकरण की बात की, कभी केवल इस देश के संसाधनों पर अल्पसंख्यकों का अधिकार है, इस तरह की बातें की। इस तरह वो मुस्लिम या अल्पसंख्यक को एक वोट बैंक के रूप में उपयोग करना चाहते हैं, पर उसके विपरीत जाकर उन्होंने अल्पसंख्यक का या माइनॉरिटी का कोई भला नहीं किया, केवल वोट हमें मिल सके, उनको गुमराह कर सके, इसलिए कांग्रेस ने ये नीति अपनाई है। और आज इस देश की ये सबसे बड़ी जरूरत है कि इस देश में एक जैसा आचार संहिता रहे, कॉमन सिविल कोड हो।
अब ये भी आरोप है कि आप अनाउंस करके कोई कमेटी बिठा के इसे छोड़ देते हैं, जिसकी वजह से ये पॉलिटिकल इशू तो बन जाता है पर इसका कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं होता है ग्राउंड पे। हर इलेक्शन में ये प्रॉमिस होता है पर कोई इंप्लीमेंटेशन नहीं होता है। आप उस पर कैसे रिएक्ट करेंगे?
मोदी जी ने स्थापित किया है कि वो गलतियां जो कांग्रेस ने या पुरानी सरकारों ने की है, यदि वो देश की एकता अखंडता के लिए कुठाराघात करती हैं, वो इस देश के भविष्य के लिए यदि ठीक नहीं है, तो उसको हम निश्चित रूप से समाप्त करेंगे।
Well, let's tell you what the Uniform Civil Code is all about. It's easier said than done. It's an intricate process that needs to take place. Broadly speaking, it is one set of secular laws which will be applicable to all religion. It governs the aspect of personal laws. Personal means for Hindus, Muslims and different religions. It is listed in part 4 of the Indian Constitution as the directive principle of state policy. Directive principles are the constitutional moralities which India must strive to achieve in the longer run. They are enlisted in Indian Constitution. It covers the entire body of laws, as I said, governing rights of divorce, marriage, inheritance, property, succession. And these are rights that will be applicable irrespective of religion. Inheritance, marriage, divorce, maintenance, adoption, more importantly, having parity between different religions, because that's where religion and customary law often falters. Moving on, it is aimed to replace the personal laws which are based on scriptures, customary practices, like you have the Muslim personal law, which is largely uncodified in this country. Goa is one example, a state which has a code, a civil code that governs all people irrespective of their religion. And that's an example. A lot of it is taken from the Portuguese law, because earlier it was a Portuguese colony. But that needs in some way to be replicated in other parts of the country as well. Let's tell you the arguments that exist on both the sides. What is the argument for the Uniform Civil Code and what is it against? As I said, it's an argument for gender equality. It enhances the status of women and, more importantly, people who come from the so-called lower castes in the country. But the counter is that it's difficult to implement. There are diverse personal laws, devotional adherences that may be there, and people are very touchy about this issue. And how can you harmonize such diverse practices in a country like India? That remains a challenge for the lawmakers in this country. Another argument in favor is that many personal law provisions violate human rights. Forget human rights, fundamental rights, a right to equality, right to dignity, Article 19, 21, 14, which are the three pillars of fundamental rights in this country. The other side is there are fears amongst the minorities that the majority sentiment or the majority identity or morality may in some way jeopardize their peculiar cultural practices and identity. While if you have Article 14, 19 and 21, you also have Article 25 and 26. They guarantee you the freedom of religion and conscience in this country. Now, UCC is not opposed to the idea of secularism. The counter is that the rights bestowed by religion can't be questioned so blatantly by court of law, unless unless it's protected under the practices which are basic to your faith and religion. So, only in a limited way courts can interfere. The last one, the liberal gender-sensitive civil code, is the need of India, the new modern India, where the old practices need to be done away with. The other side is that courts can only interfere if perhaps a certain practice is not part of the basic structure of a faith or something which is very intrinsic to the faith. In the name of social reform, yes, there are many practices that have been done with, but the courts have been varied. The judiciary in this country is going to have a very, very important role when it comes to the implementation of the Uniform Civil Code. Let's take this question to our guest as well. Alak Alok Shrivastava, who's an advocate on record in the Supreme Court of India, Atikur Rahman, who's an Islamic scholar, both are joining us on the broadcast. Good evening to both of you. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Mr. Atikur Rahman, I'm coming to you first, sir. There are various statements and various concerns that different communities will have when we talk about the idea of Uniform Civil Code. And most of these concerns found their resonance even in the Constituent Assembly debates, if you pick up and you read them. In modern independent India, is there a need for a civil code? One nation, one law, whether personal or it's about the public law that you deal with?
Well, to me, this is UCC, a shroud played by the BJP governments in the state and at the center. Why I say it's a shroud being played? Point number one is, since the BJP was having 2 seats in parliament, they had this UCC on their manifestos. Why now, in so many years, they have come out with a draft resolution or some kind of a mini UCC? Now, despite having a very strong government, with a brute majority in the parliament, why the different states are getting UCC differently? Is a different state, different UCC proposal, a uniform civil code, seriously speaking? And very important factor, all these years, our judiciary in India, mainly the Supreme Court, they have brought to the notice of the government and the people of India that the religious people are, usurping the women's rights. In the name of scripture, they are having a patriarchal and a misogynist mindset. All rights of the women are being usurped. Can't this government see the seriousness of the issue? Why are they playing this shroud on the people of India? Immediately, I would say, rather than going for the parliamentary way, get at least what you can say in the parliament, immediate law. What is that known as? I'm forgetting the name of it.
Ordinance. I think you're talking about ordinance.
Ordinance. That's it. Immediate ordinance in this winter session should be brought in.
Mr. Atikur Rahman.
Why the different states should entertain different
No. Mr. Atikur Rahman, there are few things I want to say. Mr. Atikur Rahman, I heard you patiently, but a few things I want to put on record. I think a lot of what these various state governments and their leaders are saying are political in nature. If you have the Shariat Application Act 1937 in this country, the only way the Shariat Application Act 1937 can be done away with is by the union government. So while the various state governments and their leaders may go on record and say, look, we are going to have uniform civil code, the reality of constitution and law in this country is that the union government will have to do something about it. Point number one. The second point, you said that ever since BJP had 2 members in the parliament, they've been making a hue and cry about uniform civil code in this country. That only points out to their ideological commitment, I would argue, in some way to the idea of uniform civil code. I really wish there was some more that was done by the earlier governments in terms of UCC. We would not have a mess of the personal laws in this country. I think in principle, if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, you agree to the idea of having one nation, one law. Is that correct? If that is correct, sir, then what do you have to say to a lot of people who say that, you know, if you have a uniform civil code, you're going to trample upon the rights of minorities in this country and perhaps our cultural identity is in danger?
That is the beauty of a parliamentary democracy. Once you know that the rights of the women are usurped, in the parliament can't be built up a consensus with all the political parties, with all the religious people, with committees of different kinds, with a time-bound program that within 1 year, all committees will be presenting this particular draft, and this will be the nature of the common civil code, the marriage, the divorce, mainly marriage and divorce. Inheritance comes very last. The courts are worried about marriage, inheritance, and divorce. So why can't a draft resolution? Will the contract system of the Islamic way will be taking for all the communities, or there will be sat feras for all the communities? The leaders of the BJP, they will have to spell out what exactly point number 1, 2, 3 will be a draft resolution, rather than every time saying at the time of election that we are for a UCC, the 4 marriages won't be there. And the Quran says, my friend, Allah says, since you cannot maintain equality, marry once only. We are determining these factors day in and day out.
I want to go across to Alak Shrivastava as well, who's the advocate on record at the Supreme Court of India. Alak, I want to raise this argument with you, and I think it's a fair point to make when it's being said that great that the government wants to bring in a UCC. It's the need of the hour. It's something that the modern liberal democracy like India wants and yearns for a very long time. But we still don't know how it's going to be implemented. You would know when the matter came up at the Supreme Court, and interestingly, it was a BJP leader himself who had filed in a petition. The union government said, look, the courts shouldn't interfere. It's a matter best left to the executive and the elected government of the day to decide. A task easier said than done. The modalities of the UCC are the greatest challenge before the government.
See, I completely agree with you that UCC is today need of the hour. UCC, as we all know, has been, the genesis is in Article 44 of Constitution of India, wherein our constitution makers said that the state shall endeavor to secure UCC, Uniform Civil Code, for all citizens across the territory of India. So we need to firstly understand the intention behind this. The intention was very clear. There has to be uniformity, there has to be integrity, there has to be one nation, one law, as we all know. Now, coming back to the legality, definitely Supreme Court is there to check the constitutional validity, as you very rightly pointed out. Article 25-26 violation, whether the proposed UCC is going to violate or somehow overlap the domain of 25-26, that is something which is to be examined by the court. That's definitely true. And the constitutional validity also will be examined by the court later on. But the law, as the central government has very rightly said, is something which has to be formulated by the governments, elected governments of India. Formulation or making law is not the job of the court. So certain state governments are definitely bringing the legislation, and now there are discussions amongst the central government level also that there will be a central law also on this subject. Now, 2-3 examples I would like to give you, being a practicing lawyer, why I feel that this is need of the hour, why this is definitely needed at this point of time.
Okay.
For example, let us take example of a lady who is facing a kind of divorce, and she has no law. If a lady belongs to a Hindu community or the communities which are governed by Hindu laws, she has a provision of law under Hindu Marriage Act to file a case for permanent alimony, temporary alimony, to get amount from her husband for herself as well as for the child. But similar provision is not there for a lady who is not governed by Hindu Marriage Act. So she is at a disadvantageous position. Second point is, a Hindu lady or a lady who is governed by Hindu Marriage Act, she has to have a minimum marriage age of 18 years for getting into a marital bond marriage. But a lady who is not covered by this particular act can be married as per the customs and as per their personal belief. So this is not only going to create a lot of imbalance in the society, this is actually injustice to a large portion of our female citizens of India.
There is a very famous judgment, Alak, of Daniel Latifi, And despite the government, of that time bringing in a legislation to overturn the Supreme Court judgment of the Shah Bano, the Supreme Court ruled that even Muslim women under CRPC and under the Maintenance Act can go to a trial court and claim maintenance beyond the iddat period as well. So when it comes to the Supreme Court and judiciary, yeah, they've done their bit. They've done their bit.
There is a fine difference.
Yeah.
Section 125 CRPC is applicable to Hindu women as well as English Muslim women as well.
Yes.
125 CRPC is maintenance, right? It is
Yes.
maintenance, which is something which will take day-to-day needs of take care of the day-to-day needs of a lady or her child. But Section 24 of Hindu Marriage Act talks about alimony, the larger amount which has to be granted. So there is a discrimination which is prevailing, ma'am.
Okay.
That, even as of today, there is no similar law as equal to Section 24.
No. On the broader issue of, do they really have a parity? Muslim women and Hindu women, if they separate from their husband, there is no parity. There is no parity.
No parity for entering into marriage.
Yeah.
Even I'm
short of time. One point I want to take in, Mr. Rahman. Mr. Rahman, the Muslim personal law has been hugely debated in the public, domain in the recent times for whatever reasons. People can attribute different reasons for it. Is there at all a scope of reform from within the community? Because often it is spoken, in a utopian context perhaps, that is the best way to reform. Is that possible?
The Muslim intelligentsia, since the beginning, say 4 decades ago, it is saying that gender equality and gender justice, if you want to maintain under UCC, most of the Quranic laws will have to be incorporated into it. What my friend Advocate Srivastava is saying has to be discussed on the floor of the parliament, and the consensus has to be built. So far, the communities are not get along. My minority rights are not, something very important unless and until they are in consonance with the times. The government is within its rights to use up the minority rights if they are not gender justice and gender equality basis. You will have to compromise. We will have to put our heads together, build a consensus so that women are not discriminated.
Mr. Rahman, I really wish that the rationalism that you're talking with and the sense of equity that you're talking with, especially the gender equity, I really hope that is the voice that we hear from different communities, and all the different concerns of the minorities are taken into account as and when we sit on the floor of the parliament and talk about a uniform civil code that can bring in parity. One nation, one law. Thank you, Alaka Srivastava and Atikur Rahman, gentlemen, for joining us on the broadcast. He is talking about different things and different stories that continue to dominate what's happening. Right now, we're slipping into a very short break. The story from JNU on the other side.
This whole case was registered against Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, former Member of Parliament of the BJP, is now joining us. Dr. Swamy, thank you very much for speaking with us. First things first, like I said, it started with you're moving the Delhi police and asking them for a probe into Shashi Tharoor's late wife's death. It took 7 years for the discharge case against Tharoor to happen in the first place, and earlier last year, the Delhi court had discharged him, saying that there is want of evidence. Now, 15 months later, the Delhi police have approached the court again. Many are saying they've dug up this case again. What is exactly the end game here? Because what new has the police found in terms of the last 15 months to warrant going back to the court asking for an appeal against the discharge?
Well, the Delhi police has gone in appeal against the order in the lower court. And but the question is right. You have asked a correct question. Why did they say it takes so long to wake up to after having gone to the upper court and filed an appeal against the lower court's orders? Why did you take so long to go back and start the proceedings?
Now, back when the lower court had discharged Mr. Tharoor from the trial of the death of his late wife, the court had cited, and I quote, an absence of specific allegations and sufficient material to warrant that he was in any kind of conspiracy to eliminate his wife. So my question is, what has changed between then and now, between the discharge that happened a year and a half ago and the need to go back to the High Court now and ask for an appeal against that discharge?
Well, I don't. Then it must mean that Delhi police didn't present what should have been presented. One was the autopsy report of the All India Medical Institute, which showed lots of marks on her body, an injection hole in her arm, which showed that perhaps she was also given a poison needle, and she had put up a fight. It was also very clear. What was the reason? Why was she in a hotel, 5-7-star hotel? How could this happen in what appears to be 11 o'clock in the morning?
But Dr. Swami, tell me this. You talked about the AIIMS autopsy board or even the statement that was given by Sunanda Pushkar's son. In none of this, was there any kind of material evidence that her death be treated as some kind of a homicide? So again, I keep going back to this. If neither the autopsy is saying this, nor her closest family members are alleging homicide, then on what basis is the Delhi police trying to revisit this case, or at least appealing to revisit this case?
All India Medical Institute, they gave no such report. I've read that report. I know the forensic department's head, and I've spoken to him also. They all said it was clearly a case of murder. And in fact, the FIR was registered only after the All India Medical Institute gave this kind of a thing. This is false. Yes, his son, her son rather,
yeah.
He ditched her mother. That's a different matter. That can be investigated separately. Why he did that when he was not even in the scene? How could he say that it is not murder sitting in Dubai? So I think there was a lot of attempts to save Shashi Tharoor. I hope now the justice will be dealt for Sunanda Pushkar.
Okay. Dr. Swami, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see how the courts take up this matter and whether they find grounds for the appeal.
Welcome back. An incident of vandalism has come into light at JNU School of International Studies. Faculty rooms were vandalized and on the walls, some anti-Brahmin slogans were put out. These were slogans that you can see on your screen are clearly violative of certain rights and more importantly are detrimental to a particular Hindu community. Now, these slogans were written on the walls and JNU's Vice-Chancellor has said that there is zero tolerance for such kind of abuse and violence on campus. JNU stands for inclusion and equality. BJP has said that action will be taken against anyone who is responsible. They'll be brought to book. ABVP has also released a statement saying that communist goons are responsible. The JNU Students' Union has condemned the attempt to vitiate the atmosphere on the campus.
JNU campus is in the fresh controversy yet again, this time because some of the sloganeering and the painting derogatory nature have been done in some of the places inside the campus. You can clearly see that this is the graffiti which has been done by some of the miscreants, unknown miscreants so to say, where clearly there will be blood has been written inside the educational institution. And not just this, if we move further inside this place, you can see elements in the campus has also been polluted by some of the people. Now the castes has been reported. This is the incident which was done on 30th of November and the official complaint has been filed by the Supreme Court lawyer Vinay Jindal regarding the same with the Delhi police. And the official statement has come out from the ABVP as well, who have alleged that the students, particularly from the left wing, are responsible for the same.
वो गलत हुआ है। मेरे कमरे पर लिख दिया गया गो बैक टू शाखा। अरे भाई, मैं राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ का कार्यकर्ता हूं और बाल्यकाल स्वयंसेवक हूं, तो मुझे दोबारा शाखा में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है। मैं शाखा का स्वयंसेवक हुई, मैं जाता ही हूं।
देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे कैसी कैसी अभद्र बातें और गालियां लिखी गई है।
जेएनयू में ये पहले से वेंडलिज्म लेफ्ट के लोग करते आए हैं। आज इन्होंने सीमा पार कर दी है। आज इन्होंने प्रोफेसर्स के चैम्बर पे जाकर के ऐसी अभद्र बातें लिखी है। जेएनयू कैंपस में स्कूल ऑफ इंटरनेशनल स्टडीज़ में जहाँ क्लासेस होती हैं वहाँ पे जाति सूचक बातें लिखना, वेंडलिज्म करना, एब्यूजेस करना, ये एबीवीपी इसकी बहुत ही कड़े शब्दों में निंदा करती है। वी कंडेम दिस एक्ट। हमारा ये मानना है कि जो यूनिवर्सिटी स्पेसेस है एकेडमिक डिबेट्स और डिस्कशंस के लिए होनी चाहिए। हेट फैक्ट्री जेएनयू को बना दिया है। ऐसी चीज़ें अगर जेएनयू के छात्र समुदाय में जाएगी तो किस टाइप का हम देश के लिए किस टाइप के ह्यूमन रिसोर्स को तैयार कर रहे हैं।
भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने हर संस्था का राजनीतिकरण कर दिया है। खासतौर से शिक्षण संस्थाओं में जिस तरह के कुलपति बैठाले जा रहे हैं, जिस तरह का प्रशासन बैठाला जा रहा है, वो शिक्षा की तरफ उसका ध्यान नहीं है। वो वहाँ पे भाजपा और आरएसएस के एजेंडे को लेकर चल रही, उसी की क्रिया प्रतिक्रिया के स्वरूप ये प्रतिष्ठित संस्थानों की परंपराएं समाप्त हो रही है। जिन लोगों ने जात सूचक गाली दी है या दीवाल पर इबारत लिखी है, उनके खिलाफ कार्रवाई होनी चाहिए। भारत के संविधान के अनुसार किसी जाति और धर्म के खिलाफ अपमानजनक बातें कहना दंडनीय है, संविधान के विरुद्ध है, कार्रवाई होनी चाहिए।
My colleague Nikhil Lakhwani is joining us on the broadcast. Nikhil, what's the word from the college administration, from the university administration?
Well, the college administration have taken the cognizance of the same. In fact, they have issued the official statement from the Vice-Chancellor, Mrs. Santishree. And the official statement also condemned the entire incident. Apart from it, they have also assured about the internal committee to be set up for the further investigation as to who all were behind this kind of incident. Because so far, what we do know is that nobody has taken the responsibility. No student organization has, come in front so far. So unknown miscreants is what we can say. They have done this kind of thing, but it's now, Anusha, and since the intensity of the event is such that because the caste slur were clearly written, so imagine the mindset with which the people have written so, and they are so-called the future of the country. And also at the same time, we should have a sympathy for the Brahmins as well, for the Banyas as well, who have been targeted.
Sensitivity towards any community and modesty in language is required from each side. Very briefly, Nikhil, the politics between the left and the right at the JNU campus is very well known. Any word you've picked up from the students' union body?
Well, the students' union, both ABVP and the ISA, they have been blaming each other. The reaction came in first from the ABVP side. They have been clearly saying that unknown miscreants are the one.